Hello everyone and welcome to craftedbyrenee.com. I just finished making the tube, and before I start making the rug that I'm going to make from the tube that I made, I wanted to share how I clean my machine, and it should be pretty standard for all machines. The level that you go into cleaning depends on how dirty the machine itself is. So I generally start with removing the thread out of the needle and pulling that back, and then I actually lower my presser foot some, and I keep a walking foot on my machine at all times, so I go ahead and kind of clean that out pretty good with my brush. I try and get the top of it to get any leftover dust, dirt, debris. Underneath this little bar it gets dusty, and sometimes up in here it gets dusty, so I try very hard to just keep it as clean as possible. I come from the back and I sort of move those feet forward and try and get it going this direction, and then also try and get it going this direction, and get my little brushed here to get all the little pieces. And that's before I actually go into where you keep your bobbin. Mine is a top loading bobbin, but every machine is different, so you have to follow your manufacturer's instructions, and you can see the little pieces of fuzz that just came off of that. I then go and I remove my plate, which mine happens to have one on the bottom. So I'm going to remove the whole plate, and I actually will clean the plate on its own, especially if there's little pieces of fabric that get in there. I have a scissor cutter on my plate here on the left-hand side of it, down where this white piece is. And so I do tend to check the back to see if there's any little pieces of debris in there. Sometimes there are, most times there aren't, but every once in a while a little teeny piece gets caught in there, and you never want that to get in the machine, because that can make it really difficult for your machine or ruin it or whatever, and you don't want to have to send it away for service. So then I take out my bobbin and the bobbin holder, and I generally, you can see the dust on this bobbin holder. You can see it sitting on the top. I clean all of the bobbin holder and do the inside and the outside, both sides of it. And then I usually work, oh, see, there's some more fuzz. I usually work and start at the back and bring all of the fuzz that comes off of the feed dogs, which usually get the dirtiest. The more, depending on the fabric you're using, because I do use both broadcloth and I use, so depending on the fabric you're using, the feed dogs are usually the dirtiest. Cotton always has more fabric than polyester. So you can see I've just picked some of that up. So you can see within the capsule here of where my bobbin holder sits, it is pretty darn dirty. And I did about 2 bobbins. From most experts, they tell you after 3 bobbins to clean your machine. I generally clean after 2, but that's me. And that's, again, depending on how much use you have on your machine, what kind of fabric you're using on your machine, and how many projects you're doing. Because the more projects you do, the more often you need to clean. So again, I just go over the parts, all of it, as much as possible, and take as much of the dust and debris away. I kind of just go in all the little crevices, as many as I can find. And I try to flick all the dirt up on top of the throat of the machine, or around the throat, so that it doesn't go down below and in the little parts down there. We're trying to avoid getting debris in the parts to cause problems with the function of your machine. So again, every machine looks different slightly on the inside. Every machine is slightly different. But if you can see that feed section, it is absolutely filthy. Look at how much debris I've gotten in there. And this is, again, two bobbins. So I have most of one bobbin here, and I finished one full one, and that's how much debris was within just 2 bobbins of sewing. And so I really do clean out my machine more often than is recommended by the professionals, because again, depending on the material that I am using, I have an awful lot of debris in here. And the cleaner you keep the machine, the longer lasting your machine will be. And certainly the easier it is to sew, because some of this will get stuck. Again, I actually have a knot maker and a scissor, which is in this area over here. And so I try to clean out underneath gently, because you don't want to break or damage anything. So I try to go under there with my brush and get as much debris and little pieces that do come out. There's always pieces that fall in there. And so if you can see, that is so far the little pile I've gotten just from the little bit I've done kind of surface wise. And so I just keep going back through. If I see more pieces, I keep going until I see no pieces. I try to catch as many as possible. It isn't possible to catch it all, but you know, you try your best to do the best you can with cleaning it out as best as you can. And the more you try, the better you keep it. You know, generally speaking, the longer your machine will last and the less service it will need. And so I'm going to take the bottom magnet off, and I always check to make sure that the bottom magnet is clean of the debris that is piling up there. This one looks pretty good. There's just a small little piece here that didn't get picked up when I used the brush inside there. So I just go ahead and clean that off. There is a little wick in the middle of my, right here in the center of my machine is a wick. That wick holds oil. That's where it gets oiled once a month on my particular model of machine. So the magnet has a tiny bit of oil on it. And so sometimes the debris will connect or stick to it. And I have to work a little harder to get that off. But I just keep going around if I see anything or shake anything loose, because sometimes when you do kind of go around, pieces will fly out of there and kind of pick up the pieces. You can see little pieces of machine, but I try not to go too deep. The machine is oiled at the bottom, so I don't really touch the mechanisms under there. I try just to stick with the surface things. And it looks like I've pretty much gotten everything that I can visibly see. And again, I re-wipe the bar and just keep going through it. I also take a larger brush. I have a larger brush, and I actually wipe the outside of the machine, because all these parts get debris from your thread as you're using it. And so I clean the top off, because this tends to fall again in that area where your bobbin goes. And so if you keep it clean from the start, it really does help keep the whole thing clean. So you can see I've got some more debris that has come off of the top of the machine. And again, I try really hard to, get as much as I possibly can and be gentle, but try to clean as much as I possibly can on both my table, the throat of the machine itself, and all the areas around it. And then I usually go underneath my sewing machine and clean that too, at least once a day or every other. And so all this debris will eventually just kind of fall off on your table or on your project. And so it just gets in the way. And then once complete, I'll put back the magnet and put back my bobbin holder and just put my thing back together. And I am ready to go again with another couple of bobbins, and I keep continuing my process. Hope that helps everyone.